going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. We are live. We are actually live. We were able to do this last week. For those that don't remember, I tried to be live, and I'm actually really disappointed we weren't able to go live and go through the NFL Draft Combine and everything. I mean, I still recapped it, but I missed all of you out there just giving your feedback with it. So I'm glad we can preview the free agency all together. What's going on, broski? Bears should pursue Brad Barron in free agency? I mean, might as well. I don't know how much I can do, but but we shall see. I would definitely be in that 1 percentile for size. But yeah, also bear down free agency eve. It is a beautiful day today. We're going to be breaking down all the free agents. I feel like we've talked free agents a lot, like an absolute lot, but today we're just going to be really breaking down a lot of the free agents that the Bears should be looking at. Also, who do I think that the Bears are actually going to walk away with? That is the big question too. And I also want to get all of your opinions on some of these free agents, especially the running back position, because that is a position that separates it. You know, if the fan base couldn't be more divided, then the running back position comes right in, and then we start to create an even bigger division. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, something that I think most of us are united as a front on. Kevin Byard signs with the Chicago Bears. So I ask you, the people, how would you grade the Kevin Byard signing? Are we in love with it? Do we not like it? Kevin Byard, safety from the Tennessee Titans. We talked about him a little bit last show, but in case you missed it or you didn't watch it, Kevin Byard, very, very consistent throughout his career. He is 30 years old, and last year he had over 100 tackles, but only 1 interception. But if you look previously to that in 2022, 4 interceptions. In 2021, 5 interceptions. But like I said in that last show, the thing that impresses me and the thing that I love about the Kevin Byard signing is that this guy has not missed a game. This guy does not miss games. This guy also does not miss tackles. I said it last time, and I'll say it again. 4.7 missed tackle percentage in 2023 and 2022. That is incredible. And just PFF grades, he's scored around 90 over the past 5 seasons in a row. This is a very opposite of Eddie Jackson in the sense that you have a veteran coming in, and it's about the hits principle. It's about making the tackles, making the play in front of you. No one does that better than Kevin Byard. He will just do the play. I think that he gives a good veteran presence to this room. Now, the thing that I'm not in love with is I don't necessarily love his deal. 2 years, $15 million, $7.5 million a year is a little rich to me, especially when you look at the safety class. The safety class is very, very deep. That's the only thing that I'm not necessarily in love with. I like signing a veteran, and I said this a lot of times yesterday. The safety position, I still feel like you can draft someone now, especially with the 2-year deal with Byard. Maybe you go after someone after the Bears do their traditional trade back with a lot of their draft picks. You draft someone in the 5th. You draft, the Dadrian Robinson out of Texas Tech. Have a little chance on him, or the safety out of Oregon State. You can take chances on some of these safeties later on, and maybe one of those can eventually be a starter for you. But how I would grade this, I would grade this a B+. I'm also a very strict grader. I think B+, just because I think that the contract's a little high, and it's not like you're getting the greatest player in his prime. He's a very good, sound player. I want to see what all y'all are saying out there too. C+ for Vizo Joe. Also, Bears Bone saying he likes it. He was hoping to stay under 7.5. Yeah, me too. He's fine, and he tackles. That's the big thing. Jeff, what is up, my man? And also True Blue out there. We don't know the guarantees yet. That's very true. Could cut him after a year for a low, deep cap amount, dead cap amount. That is a good point. We don't know the guarantees yet. And I mean, traditionally, with how Ryan Poles does this, I could see it being an out after the first year for sure. Jesse's saying B, Vidor's saying B plus, and Jeff's saying he isn't going to be the starter. Wow. Okay, so Jeff, not a big fan of it, giving it a C for Kevin Byard. So I'm actually very interested in this, Jeff. So what do you think that the Bears are going to do then at the safety position if Byard isn't the guy, if he's not going to be the starter? Are you thinking draft? Let me know down in the comments. I'm actually very curious about this. But yeah, he said great mentor, and Jesse's saying needs Saquon. So yeah, so let's get this preview on the way, shall we? So let's open this up. And before we even get into this, I want to talk about one thing before we go in, because tomorrow is the beginning of legal tampering period. And for those that don't know, legal tampering period is now the formal spot that people can start talking to free agents and getting deals done. A big reason why, for those that are old enough like myself to remember, I remember Lance Briggs being re-signed, and I remember it happening right when free agency started. And people were saying, why? How did this deal get done if there was no tampering going on? That was because everyone would tamper. Now they have the legal tampering window where you can open the discussions, and then the official deals happen on Wednesday. So the big thing. So now they can start negotiating on Monday, and you'll start to hear these deals are done. But for the most part, like 99% of the time, those deals eventually then come through. But they're not official until Wednesday. But here's the big thing. Watch the quarterbacks. That's what we all need to do. Today we saw Baker Mayfield get signed. And Baker Mayfield was one of the first dominoes that we needed to see fall. Baker Mayfield is now signed, so now we need to look at Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson. Now, from a Bears perspective, what do we want to see? I think typically, because the expectation is that the Bears are going to trade Justin Fields, they need that trade market out there. So, with that, you would want ideally Kirk Cousins to stay at Minnesota, and then you would want maybe a Russell Wilson to go to the Raiders or the Steelers, and then it seems like people want, then you can trade Justin Fields over to the Atlanta Falcons and get a haul. So just look at the quarterbacks. I don't want to talk too much quarterbacks because I know it's like it makes people hate everyone and love everyone all at the same time. It's a very, very divisive conversation. But just look, Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson, that's the big stuff to be watching out for. So let's go I'll also look at a little bit of the comments before we get into the running backs. Actually, I'll move it back so that we could go in here. Yeah, so Jeff answered me going to draft. And Munoz saying, A, what's going on? And also Dobbsy saying, I think he's a great rental mentor for whoever we draft. That's the big thing. I agree there. Good mentor. You're able to then draft people. Broski saying free safety, 30 years old, thinking face. But let's see what else we do. And then also Jay saying, deal is good, but a typical Bears signing. Paying a guy for what he's done, not for what he's going to do. That's a fair point. 31 years old at the start of the season and has a lot of tread on the tires. That is the one thing, too, that I am interested to see. I have not heard anything about Kevin Byard being this way, but being someone that has not missed a snap or not missed a game. I'm kind of curious can he give some of the tips to the younger bucks about how to stay healthy with everything. So that's something that I'm interested in seeing. Jesse saying we need to get a second for Fields. Otherwise, yeah, I think that's the thing. We need a second or a third. That is going to be the big piece. But let's get in. Let's get into the running backs, shall we? So this is a very fun conversation for us to be had right after we start talking about the quarterbacks. We're going right into the running backs. We're all friends here, right? So let's get started with this. My big question to you, the people, would you sign a big name running back? So let's go into this running back market and talk about it, because first off, how much salary cap do we actually have now? And if we look at the salary cap now, we don't have the updated salary numbers with Kevin Byard. I'm just going to assume that it's going to be around $7 million off the top of the cap. So if you're kind of factoring that in, we have 63 minus 7 is 56. So I'll just say it's around that 56, 55 type of a mark. So we still have a good chunk of change when it comes to contracts. So if we really wanted to, we could. But let's look. And also, actually, I forgot this slide. I wanted to bring this up to everyone because even though that free agency time is a very, very good time, what I have up on my screen is a list of people that have signed over $10 million $10 million per year contracts, and if they got cut or if they're on the bubble to get cut. So just kind of going through some of these names. This was in 2022, so only 2 years ago. Devontae Adams, still with the Raiders. Von Miller, they marked him red. And then Mike Williams on the Chargers, kind of on the bubble. Chris Godwin with the Bucket, is still there. Christian Kirk is still there. Harold Landry still there. Then you get into Chandler Jones. He's cut. Brandon Sheriff, they just had to restructure his deal. J.C. Jackson, cut. Emmanuel Ogbah, cut. Allen Robinson, cut. And then you go into a big chunk of good people. Teron Armstead, still there. Oluokun, still on the Jags. Hassan Reddick on the Eagles, very, very up there. Carlton Davis, still with the Bucks. Marcus Williams, still with the Ravens. Zadarius Smith, moved on from the Vikings. Randy Gregory, moved on from the Broncos. Where I'm trying to get at, and there's actually even more later on, is that even though, and I've said this before, even when it comes down to the draft, even though that you're signing someone that has done something in the NFL, it still is somewhat of a crapshoot. And I just thought that this graphic was pretty interesting just to see that it was around 50% of the people out there were kind of either cut or really kind of on that borderline. So we do need to be careful with the money just because even though that they were good, it's like they always say, just because you spend the most in free agency doesn't mean that you actually win free agency. So on to the running back, shall we? So from the running back perspective, let's look at the high-priced running backs that are out there. Saquan Barkley is the one that headlines the list at projected $12 million a year. And I will always say this, these numbers are coming from Brad Spielberger, the biggest cap expert that I'm pretty sure now he's getting the notoriety that he deserves. His contract predictions have actually been scarily accurate so far this offseason. He's very good at what he does. So $12 million a year for Saquon Barkley is what he's projecting. $11 million a year for Josh Jacobs. Derrick Henry projected $9 million a year for a 2-year deal. Tony Pollard, 3 years at a $6.67 million average. And DeAndre Swift, 3 years, $6.25. What's everyone thinking out there with the running back position? Do we have a lot of people that want running backs, or are we saying no? Because my take, I'm pretty sure most of you already know what my take is going to be, and I still subscribe to this. As a fan, I want to see Derrick Henry because I want to see Derrick Henry just absolutely truck some Packers. Because I love it when Cole Kmet does it. And my God, do I want to see somebody just absolutely bulldoze some green and gold out there. That's what I want to see. Also at $9 million, not so bad. Derrick Henry is a little bit up there, but I like the idea of at least just 2 years of just absolutely destroying the Packers. Yet again, I said this as a fan. But when I think about roster construction, roster building, I still subscribe to the fact that I am of the mindset that you just draft a running back every year and you just add other people in that room, because a lot of times those running backs that you can get in the later rounds do really well. It's not exciting. It's not sexy, but that is ultimately my take. So now that I've said my piece, I'm ready to go into the comments now. I'm diving back into this. So let's dive into this and let's see what we got. Munoz saying, spend money where it counts. Secondary with a vet. Good contract. And Saquon behind the Giants O-line. That's the other thing, too. I saw Saquon Barkley, and I'll say this about Saquon. Saquon has consistently produced at a plus level when you look at the advanced metrics as a running back. So I will definitely give him that. The only thing that I don't necessarily love about Saquon is that I think he's similar to like a Chase Young, where these people were like, I don't want to say generational. These people were like the blue chip prospects that were just these insane athletes. And then a bad knee injury happens and then they're losing a step. And that's what's kind of sad about Saquon is it also happened at Soldier Field. And Saquon, to me, he's still a plus player, but he's not that superstar that we all remember seeing in his first 2 years in the league. And it's kind of sad, in my opinion, to see that. But let's see. Jesse saying, yes, sign Saquon or Henry to help Caleb. TAU, what is going on? He said every free agent player isn't going to be this youthful, growing talent. Some are good to fill gaps. Good point. And then let me see. Jeff saying, no, we don't need a running back. Need to address the O-line before anything. Let's see. And let's see. Bears Bones. People, keep in mind, we don't have a lot of draft capital. That is true. So Poles needs to do his magic trade backs so we can get later. I think that is really what I agree with Bears Bones. I think the 9 pick, they'll probably trade back. 75, I could see them just trying to trade back. That's what he does, is he just trades back and he gets like these fifths, these sixths, these sevenths, and then just tries to turn them in to fill out the roster. And I think that's why he's so up for trading like a 5th round pick or so. Also signing a big, here we go with Joe, signing a big time running back would be a help to rookie quarterback. And then also, Broski saying, I'd consider Pollard or Swift because they are younger than the rest of the big name free agents, but only at the right price. Also, Ron, what is good, my friend? Bear down. I'm also going to go to the other side because, Broski, you were talking about the other running backs. Let's actually shift over to these other mid-priced running backs that are, in fact, out there. And I'm kind of curious to those people that like the high-priced running back, like the Saquon Barkley. Would you be fine if the Bears went with a mid-priced running back? So like an Austin Eckler, an Austin Eckler at $4.5 million for $4.5 million a year. Devin Singletary, 4.25 a year. Gus Edwards, 3.75. Zach Moss, 3.75. J.K. Dobbins coming off an injury at 2, and A.J. Dillon at $3.25 million in average, over every year. So what do you guys think? Because to me, the one that there's 2 people that jump out. Because also, first off, I agree with True Blue. I think Derrick Henry at 9 is interesting because he's still high level. And if it is a 2-year deal, I do like that if they are going to go with the big name running back. I enjoy Derrick Henry, and also underrated as a pass catcher. He's not a true wide receiver out there, but he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I just think that he wasn't asked to do that a whole lot, and he started to do that a little bit this year. But other players, Austin Eckler is interesting at that $4.5 million because he is a threat to catch the ball out of the backfield and make a play. That's where Austin Eckler, I really do like that as a potential piece, or even Zach Moss. Zach Moss, we saw, he comes in, and as a Zach Moss fantasy football owner, I was going, why are they subbing him out for Jonathan Taylor with some of these big pieces? Because Zach Moss makes people miss. Zach Moss has done a whole bunch of stuff out there. Also, Philip, my friend, what is good? Bear down. So I like Zach Moss. And at 3.75, that isn't half bad. If you do want to bring in another veteran player, I mean, we do have Travis Homer, but as we've talked about in some of these mock off seasons, you could potentially get rid of him and save an additional $2 million. So, man, I'm looking up here. We got 77 comments out here. I'm going to just try and scan through this, man. You guys are awesome. Because if I was sitting here reading every single thing, y'all might have us do another 2-hour show with this. But also Pollard is interesting. That's another thing too. If they want to go running back by committee, that is something that is interesting, because when you look at the Seahawks, it looked like they like bigger body players. You see a Zach Charbonnet that they drafted. They went higher. Also, that's another reason why the Bears might actually sign a running back. The Seattle Seahawks spent high draft capital in order to get a running back. So that those signs might be all pointing to the Bears actually signing a big name running back and saying, you know what? We want to invest that money at the running back position. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure, fans. I know for sure. And I am just scrolling down. Hello, all. What is going on, James? And yeah, so I'm seeing a whole bunch of mixed stuff out there. I'm seeing people saying, hey, let's not sign a running back. Let's sign a running back. Let's go small. Let's go big. I think that this just perfectly sums up us Bears fans right about now. We are just going everywhere with this. I absolutely love this. But yeah, I think that a big piece of this is also what the Bears think that they can do with the draft. I think that is very realistic. If the Bears think that they can go back and move back, which I think that Ryan Poles believes he can, then maybe they don't need that. But if we talk about, like what I just said about the Seahawks wanted to invest big at the running back position, and if the Bears were to go with one of these top running backs, I don't know. I like the idea of the rental with Derrick Henry. If they were to go big, that's just my opinion there. But personally, I'm in the mindset of drafting. But like I said, this was crazy, and I'm just trying to still scroll through. But I love the engagement that's going on with all of this stuff, with this running back position. But let's keep her moving, shall we? Let's talk some wide receivers, where I think that we're going to have even more discussions on this. We got the wide receivers now. So wide receivers. The rumor is that the Bears are going to add at least multiple wide receivers. And to that, I say, yeah, no duh, because we need multiple wide receivers, because right now our depth chart is Velus Jones and Tyler Scott, Colin Johnson, who I like Colin Johnson as like that EQ St. Brown replacement, but we need to at least sign someone. And then I feel also draft. I hate saying this, but I like what the Packers did. I like that the Packers signed multiple wide receivers, and they had like 3 rookie wide receivers a year ago, and then they had 2 rookie tight ends this year. I like the idea of at least batching it up, because then you can develop these wide receivers into something awesome. And also, wide receivers, as we will see, are freaking expensive. For backup wide receivers, they get very, very pricey. So if you can draft them and develop them, this is also a good wide receiver class. I like a lot of the wide receivers that are out there, and we've talked about this before. I think you can get starters in the 3rd round. And if you're able to get a good draft pick, if you're trading down from 9 or trading Fields and hopefully getting a 2nd or a 3rd, whatever it might be, you can then get another wide receiver with that. But it's not about the draft today. It's about the wide receivers. So let's go look at these high-priced wide receivers that we got out here. We have Calvin Ridley as the headliner. And also, as you already probably know, and as you are already doing, as I'm seeing the chat numbers go up, what wide receivers are you signing out there? We got Calvin Ridley at $18.5 million a year over 3 years. We have Hollywood Brown, 1 year for $12 million. Gabe Davis, I found this very interesting. Gabe Davis, the wide receiver out of the Buffalo Bills, 1 year, $12 million. And then Odell Beckham Jr., 1 year, $7 million. Brad Spielberger used to have 10, and he actually lowered it down to 7. So I'm curious if that market or just that older wide receiver, just lower. Curtis Samuel at 2 years, $8.5 million a year. And Tyler Boyd at $8.25 million an average over the next 2 years. Now, I just want to look at this advanced group, this top high-price group of wide receivers. When I'm looking at this, Calvin Ridley, he came back, and he didn't really look like the Calvin Ridley that we knew. And at being kind of the top-tier guy at 18.5, that's a little rich for me. Not going to lie, that's a little rich for me. And Hollywood Brown, I just see the drops. He's so talented. He's so fast. But countless times, whenever I think of Hollywood Brown, I see him wide open, dropping a pass. And no matter what, with a young quarterback, you want to make sure that that player is reliable. And I think that us Bears fans, I'm not even looking at the comments right now, but I know what's going on in the comments right now. Curtis Samuel, we already have made the connections. Everyone's made the connection with DJ Moore. And that's where Curtis Samuel, I think, is that top person that we all want to see. Because Curtis Samuel might be more of that slot receiver, but Curtis Samuel, too, he can be that number 2. And he consistently gets open and can make good plays. That's why I really like Curtis Samuel. And if the Bears do, in fact, move on from Justin Fields, you got to make DJ Moore happy. So bring his best friend over to hang out with him. That's what I would do. I would say if they moved on, be like, all right, I know that you're mad, but Curtis is coming, right? That's a good way to kind of smooth things over if I'm the Bears management. But the person that I actually want to, there's 2 wild cards that I want to bring up because we talked about the Bears having projected about $56 million in cap space. That's a lot of money that the Bears can do to fill out this roster because they've already begun filling out some of these holes on the roster. Look for Tyler Boyd. As weird as it sounds, Tyler Boyd has been a solid player. And from all indications that I've heard, he's a really good locker room guy that brings up young players and is just a true leader out there. The Bears could fall in love with a player that is someone that people can just rally around and be that true leader in the locker room. Yeah, we have DJ Moore, but there's also that other side of taking care of your body, being a professional. Every indication says that Tyler Boyd is that guy, and I just think that the Bears, and Flus would sit down and be like, I heard good things about you, and just like stroke his beard and be like, we got to have you on the Bears. But the other person is Gabe Davis, because we already know the Buffalo Bills connections with our defensive coordinator being over from Buffalo. But Gabe Davis, 1 year, $12 million, he wants to prove something. Also, when you look at these wide receivers, a lot of them are slot players. And a big reason why I like Gabe Davis is more that X receiver. He's a taller, bigger wide receiver. Now, he doesn't separate as much, which I don't necessarily love, but Gabe Davis could potentially turn into something. Also, a big reason is I'm assuming that the top 3 wide receivers in the draft, Rome Odunze, Neighbors, and Marvin Harrison Jr. are not going to be there for the Bears at 9. That's just an assumption at this point in the draft, right? Later on in the draft, you can get good slot receivers, a Ricky Pearsall, a Malik Washington. A lot of these wide receivers drop because they're slighter, they're smaller, they can't get off the line of scrimmage. And that's where it's nice to, if you are signing a free agent, get someone that can play the X, the outside wide receivers, because then you can draft a slot later on in the draft. So just something for us to be thinking about. So let's see what we got going out there in the chat so far. We got bring in JJ McCarthy coming from Guillotine. And then also Michael saying Gabe Davis or Ridley. Broski Pollard is nice too, James is saying. And yeah, and Big T say crazy all want a running back when the quarterback was running for his life. Good point by Big T. But then also Bears Bones draft a wide receiver and add Curtis Samuel. Jake saying Ridley, we're seeing Curtis Samuel out there as well, going through some of this stuff. But also, yeah, Curtis, yeah, James agreeing with me with Curtis making him happy. But let's look at some of the more, I don't like to call them bargain bins. These are the mid-tier wide receivers that are out there. So kind of this $7 million to $3 million. I do want to talk about these to ask if any of these people actually appeal to you. So Michael Thomas at $6 million a year, DJ Chark at $6.5 million a year, and Kendrick Bourne at $7 million a year, Josh Reynolds at $5.25, and KJ Osborne 4.25, and Noah Brown 3.5. When I look at this list, the only players that stick out to me are Josh Reynolds, who has been with Shane Waldron back in the days of the Rams. A very under-the-radar person that the Bears might want to add as an outside X receiver, Josh Reynolds. Then Kendrick Bourne is another player that he's coming off of an injury, but someone that is a good foundational receiver that, yet again, can play on the outside. Those are just the only 2. I'm not a big KJ Osborne fan. DJ Chark, I think, has kind of fallen off. And Michael Thomas, Lord, I do not want him in the locker room. I think if you're building a Madden team, Michael Thomas makes sense. But if you're building a franchise in real life, Michael Thomas, I don't think makes a lot of sense just because we don't know if he's going to play. Anyone that does fantasy football knows, is Michael Thomas actually playing this year? The world will never know. So that's something to me that I am very curious about from a wide receiver perspective. But let's continue going through some of these wide receivers. I got to show y'all more options. Now we get into the bargain bins where we don't even have numbers for what these are projected to get. These are players that might have been cut, but also just on the bottom of the barrels. So we have Nick Westbrook from the Tennessee Titans. We have Cedric Wilson Jr. from the Miami Dolphins, Marquez Valdez-Scantling from the Chiefs, Braxton Berrios from the Dolphins, Donovan Peoples-Jones from the Detroit Lions, and Mac Hollins from the Atlanta Falcons. Now, out of this list, the only players that kind of stick out to me are Cedric Wilson, because if you remember, 2 years ago? Cedric Wilson was kind of the hot commodity coming out. People saying this is a very good slot receiver that was coming out of the Dallas Cowboys. And in Miami, good offense, just never really found a home. And that's someone that I'm at least just curious about. Like, why did you suck? Like, why do you stink now all of a sudden? So Cedric Wilson is someone that's just an interesting name, but even like a Braxton Berrios, someone who's just been kind of a special teamer, slot player, but also a Donovan Peoples-Jones, who seemingly had a pretty good, okay career for the Browns, but then really fell off in Detroit. So a lot of these players, no one that you really want to see starting, but players that people might want to take a shot on. So my question, are you taking a shot on any of these bargain bins out there? Let me know down below, but I'm looking more and more into these, and y'all are going great with the comments out here. We got 100 new comments out here, so I'm just trying to scroll through the chat, read as much as I can. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about larger players, and also funny thing about Gabe Davis. A lot of my friends, they know me as someone who does not like Gabe Davis because I always make fun of him. I've been talking a lot about fantasy football today. I normally never do, but Gabe Davis is someone that I always make fun of because he's always been one of those players that in fantasy football, people draft like overly, way too high. But Gabe Davis in real life is a tall player, has some solid, can play. But yeah, if you can get him for 1 year as a trial, very interesting. But I also agree. I see no Odell Beckham Jr. out there. Totally agree with that. Odell Beckham is someone there. Also, I saw this and it just jumped out. Jeff saying, keep Mooney. I'm a Mooney fan. I would love to keep Darnell Mooney. And he's always been one of my favorite players. I feel like he is very humble, and the only time you saw him lose his cool was towards the end. He was frustrated because he was getting open. And the more advanced stats that I see, it just backs up what I saw on tape. Mooney was getting open, guys. Mooney was open, and just the ball was not getting to him. So, yeah. But also, Broski saying, I see no 30-year-old wide receivers out there. I agree with that from the standpoint of, I don't think a lot of people talk about how wide receivers that are 30, they really do fall off just an absolute cliff. And I know Boyd surprisingly is at like that 30 mark or so. But yeah, James saying Mooney already turned down a contract. He did last year. So this year, yeah, I can't see him actually re-signing, but I want him to re-sign. But let's see. Looking more down here. Y'all have been great in this chat. I'm just trying to go as fast as I can. That just keeps growing. But let's see out there. Yeah, and lots of different pieces with the wide receivers. But like I said, I could see them going with one of the top players just to kind of add that veteran. And then I don't know why. I feel like they're gonna go Taj Boyd. I mean, not Taj Boyd, with Boyd. I don't know why. I'm not saying it would be great, but I don't know. It's just one of those weird hunches. It just feels like a Bears thing. But let's go. Let's go to the other side. Let's talk center, because I want to discuss this offensive line with y'all. So the center position is interesting because at this center spot, we have Ryan Bates. And, when he was traded, we said this. Ryan Bates has been a backup. And the only time that he's been a starter, he wasn't great. And he played that guard position. But when you start hearing a lot of people talk about this, Ryan Bates is making $4 million a year. And it's sad to say this, but in the world of sports, you follow the money. Whoever's getting paid is most likely going to be the starter. So my question to you, do you think that the Bears are going to sign another center? That is what I'm asking. Not would you, but do you think that the Bears are going to sign another center? Because my take is I don't think they are. I would be surprised if they did, because I think they think that highly of Ryan Bates. The only reason why I think they might not, if they feel this way, is what is their thought on Nate Davis? Because if they don't believe Nate Davis is going to be able to come back and they just say, you know what? You weren't ready to play, and we know that you were going through stuff, but that's unacceptable. If they feel that way, then yeah, I think Ryan Bates is then going to be your guy. And I think at center, you still have good players. And like we said, there's still a chance that they ultimately end up signing someone. And that's why we are still going to be going through these centers today. And just so we know, Andre James, the center out of the Raiders, I actually said this at the very, very beginning. For those that were here at the very beginning of the offseason, I said they're going to sign Andre James. The Raiders like Andre James, and they re-signed him. So the high-price centers that are available, Lloyd Cushenberry, who's projected to get $12.5 million a year, Tyler Biadasz at $7 million, and Connor Williams, let me just remove my banner so I can actually see this, at $7.5 million a year. And Brad Spielberger raising what he thinks and saying 3 years for Connor Williams is what he's projecting. Are you adding another center? Let me know what you believe. So yeah, let's talk about this. So I'm seeing a lot of people, not the center. Yeah, like a lot of us are not big fans of this offensive line out here. And yeah, Van Prant, I agree with what Michael has to say. This is actually what I did I did a mock, but I didn't actually broadcast it to y'all. But Van Prant, I had him in the third round at 75, would be a good selection and develop. That's what I would like to see. Is I would like to see them develop someone behind the scenes with it. But to me, Ryan Poles, he's supposed to be this offensive line guru, and my God, does he love Ryan Bates? We all know how much he loves Ryan Bates. So that's my question is, why do you love Ryan Bates so much? Because if he likes him this much, that he wants to trade for him, he wants to have the restricted free agent tag on him, he sees something in him. He clearly does. And that's why I don't know. That's why I still don't feel like they would end up signing someone. But an interesting concept, because a very interesting concept to have out here is Connor Williams. Connor Williams is a very, very good interior offensive lineman that you can have on your team. And something that I like the idea of. Why not sign Connor Williams? And then, he might have to be on IR for the beginning of the season. But you're getting a top center / guard. He can play all those positions on the interior for $7.5 million over 3 years. Sign me up for that. And all that you have to do is just place him on IR for the first 4 weeks. I would definitely be calling up Connor Williams' camp and just bringing it up, because you're in the business of adding good players. And Connor Williams is a very good player. Connor Williams is a better center than Lloyd Cushenberry, in my opinion. I think he's the best center that's out there. He's just injured. So I really like the idea of potentially bringing in a Connor Williams and having him just kind of nurse behind a Ryan Bates. And then, then when he's back to health, you have a very, very good interior offensive lineman that's back on your team. Just something to definitely kick around here. And also I'm getting some that Bates is not a center. he's been a guard majority of his time, but he has played center. And from what some people are saying, they're saying that he's going to be more of a center. And how do I believe that? That's where I'm iffy on it. That's where I'm very, very iffy on this center position. I'll be there. But also I'm seeing we have some Justin Fields conversation out there too. But yeah, so let's see what else is going on. We're seeing some Cushenberry, some Connor Williams fans out there as well. We're seeing some swing guard. Yeah, I see a lot of people saying Bates as a swing guard. That's the thing, because that's my biggest question is, can you just get an actual, like, is Ryan Bates an actual center? I think that is the question that we all need to have. Also, there's more centers out there. I didn't post all of them here, but a couple other centers that are there. Aaron Brewer, very lightweight. He's under 300 pounds. I want to say he's like 270. Very, very, very lightweight from the Tennessee Titans, but still a good player. Gets to his blocks well. $6.67 million average is what is being projected. Evan Brown, $4.5 million average. Coleman Shelton, $5.33 million average. So, and also I think I might have missed what they actually were. I think I put Raiders for Shelton. But I think overall, though, I wouldn't like Evan Brown. I'll say that, because Evan Brown at $4.5 million, he is a true center, but I don't think that he's a great center. When we talked about Evan Brown before, I thought he was a good player if you have someone that's developing, kind of similar what you have with Bates, but we already have Bates. So that's why, to me, I'm kind of moved on from an Evan Brown. If you want to bring in a vet like the center from the Rams last year, that's a good option because he's been banged up, he's been injured, but when he's healthy, Brian Allen, when he's healthy, he's a darn good center. And you could probably get him for pretty darn cheap. And he's a Chicago Bears fan. So that's someone that is on my list that was not actually literally on my list on YouTube. But Brian Allen is someone that, if the Bears want a veteran center and a true center, I like the idea of Brian Allen. You bring him in, and if he's banged up and if he's injured, then Ryan Bates comes in. Something to be thinking out there. And Broski saying, stop with the Bates at center talk. Seriously, Brad. I don't like it. I don't like talking about it, but unfortunately, that's the state of the franchise right now. Is that Bates, Bates has been center, and right now he's at the center position. So right now, we got to see what they end up doing. So that's ultimately what I think they need to see. So also I like Big T's correction. Bates equals white hair, get a center. Yeah. Because also too, Bates was a tackle in college, just like one Cody Whitehair. So yeah, as I haven't seen a lot of like Bates snapping or anything like that. So I personally don't know if he's a good snapper or anything like that. So something to be thinking about for sure. I've seen more and more just Justin Fields and Caleb Williams conversations out there in the chat. So, but no, the center position I think is going to be the most I think that's going to be interesting because I feel us as fans and people us as Bears fans, we want a center. And does Bates feel that? I can't say that confidently. As any of you can see or hear on me, I'm not confident in Ryan Bates as a center, but Ryan Poles loves the dude, so hopefully he is just a rotational player. But that's enough offensive talk for today. Let's flip over to the defense, shall we? Let's talk about defensive ends. And let's talk about the big boy that everybody has been talking about and saying him going to the Chicago Bears. That is Danielle Hunter. So my question to all of you, are the Bears going Danielle Hunter? Are you going for Danielle Hunter? Let me know down in the comments. So Danielle Hunter is projected $21.67 million a year. Jonathan Grenard projected $19 million a year, the defensive end out of the Texans. And then Bryce Huff, $16.67 million a year. Chase Young, $15 million a year. And then also Zadarius Smith, $12.25 million a year. Also, I just saw this pop up in the chat. The chat's been going nuts today, which has been so much fun. Leonidas, Unbearable Sports Podcast, new here. Love the channel. Thank you so much for subscribing. Also, everyone out there, just a reminder, make sure to like. We have over 200. It's been around 250 or so. So we have over 200 people out there. Make sure to leave a like. Let's see what we should do at the defensive end position. First thing that I see, Munoz saying draft a D end. My first thing that I want to say, I've said this before, I feel like the Bears might draft defensive end at 9 or trade back and get another defensive end because you see Latu, you see Verse, you see Dallas Turner, a lot of good defensive ends are out there that I like to place in there. Now, Danielle Hunter would be fun. I think that Danielle Hunter is one of those players that it would be a lot of fun to get. And some people that I'm a little bit nervous about, Bryce Huff, reminds me of, the Pernell McPhee coming out of the Baltimore Ravens, where Pernell McPhee had a limited snap count, but when he was in the passing snaps, looked great. And then the Bears ended up signing him. He was solid, kind of up and down, but ultimately we were more so disappointed with him. That reminds me of Bryce Huff. Very fun to watch, very, very big pass rusher, but it does make me a little bit nervous getting him at $16.67 million. Jonathan Grenard, I think he's solid. This is similar to me with like Boyd. I don't know why. I feel like the Bears might fall in love with Jonathan Grenard and sign him to $19 million. I am a little nervous, though, with Grenard just because his best season comes with D'Amico Ryans coming in, with Will Anderson coming in, and he looked good, don't get me wrong, but at $19 million a year for a Jonathan Grenard, that's a very steep price. But defensive end, too, you're already paying for a defensive end on the opposite side. So my personal take, Danielle Hunter would be really fun. I want to see what his actual price is. $20 million is not bad, but you're talking about a 30-year-old pass rusher who has been very good. I'll talk about a little bit later. I think that we could get some good players and then draft some people and develop them. I think because you've already signed Montez Sweat, I like the idea of maybe bringing in another vet and then drafting someone to then develop on this defensive line. But let's see what y'all are saying. And then Michael saying, I'm being sold on taking Wilkins over Danielle Hunter. I agree with that. I think that the D tackle, well, cover the defensive tackles. Defensive tackles are a little weak in this class. It's always hard to find good ones that are out there. But also, Leonidas, think Jonathan Grenard's 12 sacks was a fluke? I wouldn't personally call it a fluke in my opinion, but I think that it's just I don't necessarily I wouldn't all of a sudden say you're going to be our defensive end for the next 4 years. I'm not that convinced, and we went through the graphic at the beginning of the show where a lot of these big ones don't necessarily work with this. And then also CBP film saying we're not going through any of these. So it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff to be going through. But let's see. Also, too, yeah, True Blue makes a good point. Grenard, he's suspicious about why is Houston, with all their cap space, letting a young edge leave. I agree there. That's a very, very good point. They have cap space. They can bring him back. Why aren't they bringing him back? That's usually a bad sign. Also, if you look at the list that we had at the beginning of the show, the players that did well after free agency were the players that went back to their other teams, or most of them were the players that went back to their old teams because they know how to use them. They know how to operate with them. But yeah, there's a lot of good players. And even with like Hunter, I'm still surprised that why aren't the Vikings fighting more? But Vikings fans are saying they would not want the Bears to get Danielle Hunter, which is usually a good sign. If the other fan base is saying, hey, don't get this guy. But let's go through some more mid-price range before I start going through more of these, because I like some of these players. Because the reason why I think that the Bears still need a defensive tackle, I still think that they need a guy out there. Because remember, defensive ends, we saw this last year. We saw this the year before. We saw this the year before that. Typically, defensive ends, you can get a veteran after the draft. It happens all the time. Bears got Yannick Ngakoue after the draft. Jadeveon Clowney was still available after the draft, and he still did very well. And you look at these mid-price points. Jadeveon Clowney projected at $9 million. Josh Uche, 7.25. Leonard Floyd, if we want a reunion, at $6 million. Andrew Van Ginkel, who had a pretty darn good year at 6.5, but he's more of an outside linebacker. Danico Autry at 7.25. And Dorrance Armstrong at 8.5. Next, on the other side, there's even more mid-price points. Calais Campbell at $7 million. Mike Dana at 8.25. AJ Epinesa at 6.75. Tyquan Lewis at $6 million. DJ Wanham at 7.25. And Marcus Davenport at 1. So let's go through this. And I don't think I have any other ones. I think it then goes to the defensive tackle. So let's stay on the defensive ends. I'm going to stay on this slide right here because there's a couple players. I believe in the idea, and the Bears believe in this too, and other defensive line people believe in this too. Add defensive linemen, and then they'll make your defensive line better. If you have better players, you have better bodies to go out there and dominate. Dominique Robinson is not a good body. Dominique Robinson was horrific last year. You need to upgrade. I still love Calais Campbell. At $7 million, the dude is a giant. The dude is great. He still plays at an insanely high level. And if you just need somebody to come in here and wreak havoc, why not? AJ Epinesa is another person that's interesting that I know a lot of Bears fans we really like. AJ Epinesa, though, did not start for the Buffalo Bills, but he is a good rotational pass rusher at 6.75. You do have the money, and also you have the defensive coordinator that can tell you if he likes AJ Epinesa. And if the Bears sign Epinesa, I'll be happy because they know this guy and they know what he can do. If they don't sign him, I'll be happy because they know him and they know what he can do. So that's my feeling on Epinesa. But another one that's interesting, Tyquan Lewis had a pretty good year this year, a breakout year, and that's why you're seeing him at like that $6 million average. But lots of good defensive ends that the Bears could be going after. And I think the biggest question is, do they want to spend the big money and go after a Danielle Hunter? That is going to be, I think, or a Danielle Hunter or a Jonathan Grenard, because you look at them, they're only $2 million separated with their average salaries. But also another person just to be on the lookout for is Chase Young. And I already heard that probably about a fifth of you just let out a sigh. So Chase Young, like I mentioned before, reminds me similarly of a Saquan Barkley, where before the big knee injuries that both of them unfortunately had, they were freaks. They were beasts. They were insane. They were awesome. Then the knee injury happens. And then Chase Young still had production. Chase Young still got sacks, still did well. But just like Saquon Barkley, they both have production, but you see kind of that shell of what they once were, which is very unfortunate. Chase Young, when you see him and he's not able to win with that first move, you see him kind of be like, okay, I'm kind of done. And it just seems like that knee, like when you watch him, it looks like someone that still isn't fully comfortable playing on a new knee. I don't know what it's called. I forgot what it's called. I wish Johnny PayPal was on this show right now, or hopefully he's one of the 270 people watching right now. If he is, and if anyone's a physical therapist, there is an actual condition that if you get injured, you are scared of, you're scared of getting hurt. That's what Chase Young looks like out there when he's playing. He looks like he's scared to hurt his knee. But for 1 year, $15 million, I don't mind that if you want to just have a rotational player and then draft someone. But I'm still under the impression, I just want, if you add anybody, I want them more temporary, then you can draft someone. But if they end up walking away with Danielle Hunter, I can't be that bad. I can't be that mad at them, I got to say there. So, for sure. But let's see what we got. Broski saying, typically I wouldn't sign anyone turning 30 soon, but I'd sign Hunter. In a heartbeat, I believe he has 3 high-performing seasons left. Yeah, and that's where, too, I do agree. I think that Danielle Hunter, that's where, if they are going to go big, Danielle Hunter's my guy. I think if you're going to spend the money on a defensive end, you go with him. I would rather have him over Bryce. When you look at Bryce Huff, Jonathan Grenard, or Danielle Hunter, Danielle Hunter has been consistent his entire career. And I feel like you go with that more than Huff, more than Grenard. You go with Danielle Hunter. You pay the extra money, but you're getting someone that I feel that is just going to be better. So let us see. I'm looking out here, drafted DN, pick up a 3-tech is what Prince is saying out there. What's going on? And also Yannick for another cheap 1-year deal. And he's saying he can platoon with Walker. Yannick will be interesting because no one's talking about him, but he is coming off of that knee injury. I just wish that we would have seen Yannick more with Sweat, because Yannick, when he's like, wait, there's not another good pass rusher on the other side. I have to do this by myself. He's like, dang it. Why did I come to Chicago? But yeah, it would be, you could get him cheap. Like, you definitely could get him cheap. If they think that if they think he could come back, if you get him at like $3 million or $4 million, I wouldn't hate that. And you have him as a pass rusher, and then you draft someone, and then you kick Dominique Robinson to the curb. I don't mind that if you can get him for real cheap. But I see a lot of drafted defensive end. Michael, I agree with you. Draft verse, play Wilkins, sign Hunter, drafted D end. Man, we got a lot of stuff out here. And also, I agree. I like all the all the verse stuff out there. I really do like verse. But let's keep going through. Last saying Chase Young is healthy and could be good value. I do agree with that. Like I said, Chase Young, he does seem a little bit hobbled by his knee, but he's getting production. And I mean, for 1 year, what do you got to lose? If he doesn't do well for you, you move on, right? So, but also I forgot, Leonidas bringing up Josh Sweat, 26 and 27-year-old. He's someone that is on the trade market that someone could bring in and bring him down. So something definitely to be on the lookout for. Also, Munoz breaking the big news. Kendrick Bourne signs 3-year, $19.5 deal. All right, take him off the board. He is no longer there, but let's see what else is going on out there. We got Munoz saying Hunter or bust too. So lots and lots and lots of stuff out there. Man, y'all are awesome. So let's move on to the final round, the defensive tackles, shall we? So let's ask, what defensive tackle are you all signing? Let's look at these high-priced players, because my take with all of this is that the Bears still need a defensive tackle. You look at their defensive tackles, Bell's gone. Bell was signed by another team. So you look at who we have right now. We have Andrew Billings, kind of good run stuffer, as we saw last year. I thought very, very good. Love the signing, love the re-signing. And then you have Jervon Dexter and Zach Pickens that are seemingly, like we've talked about this at the beginning of the season. I said I didn't expect these players to do that well. I actually expected Pickens to do slightly better just because of his quick first step. So you expect, though, defensive tackles should take a step forward the next season. They should look better because it is a difficult position for rookies to learn and understand. So they should be better. All that to say, I still feel like we need to sign another veteran, kind of like what we had with Justin Jones. Now, there are talks that Justin Jones, maybe he comes back because he does love Chicago, and they do like Justin Jones. To me, I just would not sign him at that $7 million that he had before. If I'm bringing him back, I'm bringing him back at 3. I'm bringing him back at a low deal to say, all right, you can come back, but your spot ain't guaranteed. Because I feel, and the reason why, I think you can do better than Justin Jones. It's just like with Eddie Jackson. Kevin Byard is better than Eddie Jackson. You need to upgrade at your positions. And that's where I think that Bears did that with Kevin Byard. We need to upgrade at defensive tackle. And if we really want to upgrade, here's these high-priced defensive tackle free agents we can sign. So let's look at this. The high price, Christian Wilkins, projected 4 years, $25 million. Now, the thing I fear like he might even make even more. Because you look at the rest of the players. Leonard Williams, projected 3 years at $17.25 million a year. That's a huge drop-off. in my opinion, from Christian Wilkins to Williams. Wilkins has this market on lock. Then you have DJ Reader, 3 years, $15.25 million. Grover Stewart, 3 years, $11 million. And Sheldon Rankins, you have him at a 2 years, $10 million average. And I've said this before, Sheldon Rankins might be a low-key, quick, easy signing for a good 3 technique. But when I look at everyone else, DJ Reader, Grover Stewart, and even like a Leonard Williams a little bit, I don't necessarily love those signings for what the Bears need. Then that brings us to Christian Wilkins. And Christian Wilkins, I said this on the last show, I would love the Bears to sign Christian Wilkins. I think that he's just like Akeem Hicks. Like, for anyone that has seen the man talk, he is Akeem Hicks. Like, just picture Akeem Hicks. Now you can see Christian Wilkins. That's who he is. Very good run stuffer. But the thing is, he has not consistently generated sacks, which you want to see out of your 3 technique. I'm actually just going to pull up the stats real quick. But he's a good player, good run defender, and he's only 28 years old. So he is a little bit younger, and he's projected 4 years. So he would play till 32. Now, when you look at the stats, I just pulled these up real quick. 9 sacks last year. Before that, 3.5 sacks. And before that, 4.5 sacks. That's what it's numbers, right? They're just stats. But if you're paying someone $25 million or potentially more, that's like what TJ Watt's getting. That's what those elite, the big names, the person that is on the front page, like when the Bears signed Khalil Mack back in the day, those front page players. Do I think Christian Wilkins is a front page player? I don't, but do I think he's really good? Yes, he's really, really good. He's a star defensive tackle, but I wouldn't call him a superstar. That is my only dilemma. So if they sign him, I'd be fine with it. But I am just so nervous that his price tag is just going to keep getting higher and higher and higher. And also the question, why are the Dolphins letting him walk? The thing that I've heard is that the Dolphins have an offer out to him, but they want him to just explore, like he just wants to explore free agency to see what he can get. And I think it's a smart move on his behalf because, like I said, I think he's going to rise up the price. I think his price tag is going to be soaring. I think it's going to be going up like crazy. That's my take on it. But I want to see, let's keep on going through these other defensive tackles. So now we have this second tier. And here we have G.R. Tart, from the Titans, if the Bears want to get more Titans, 3 years, $7 million. Then we have Daquan Jones, 1 year, $6 million. A'Shawn Robinson, 2 years, $6 million average. Javon Kinlaw, $5.5 million average on a 1-year deal. Quentin Jefferson, $3.5 million on a 1-year deal. And Shelby Harris, 1 year, $3 million. And I want to say this because I think Quentin Jefferson might be on the Bears' radar. I think that he could be someone that, we've said this before, Quentin Jefferson, good pass rushing defensive tackle, and that's why I think that Quentin Jefferson could be someone. And at $3.5 million, I think that's an upgrade over Justin Jones. So that might be, if the Bears come away with Quentin Jefferson and then they sign let's say a Danielle Hunter. You go Danielle Hunter at defensive end, Quentin Jefferson at a defensive tackle, and then you go Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle out of Texas. You trade back a little bit and you draft him. That's a very, very, very good defensive line that you just built for the Bears. So that's something that I kind of feel like the Bears should do. But ultimately, if you want to go big, Christian Wilkins is that guy. And we could be looking tomorrow and saying, listen, the Bears just signed Christian Wilkins, because how important is that 3-tech? We need that 3-tech. And Wilkins, best one on the market. And the defensive tackles on the market, defensive tackles are hard to find, I got to say. So that's where Wilkins is at. But let me see where people are going with this. And I'm just scrolling down. Let's see, DJ Reader from Illinois Jones. That's what he's saying. Munoz saying Wilkins youngest at 28. Let me see what else we got out here. Broski, not a fan of Wilkins. Let's see. Bears Bones saying fingers crossed Javon will bloom this year. Agreed. Hopefully he can. He's got the strength. He just, like, I said this when we drafted him. The dude he needed the first step. And also, it's very, very hard for defensive linemen to win when they haven't had all this like great production in college. He's got to, that's where I love what we're doing from a coaching perspective on our defensive line. Illinois Jones saying 4 years too long for Christian Wilkins. So let's see. Sweaty Shorts, what's good? He said, I know we don't need him, but I'm a huge Tavondre Sweat fan. Oh, yes. I love him too. I totally agree. I love Tavondre Sweat as well. Could be a tractor trailer and Ted Williams, Sweat and Billings. Also, how awesome would it be if we had Josh Sweat, Montez Sweat, and Tavondre Sweat? Just three. Like, you don't want to go against the Bears, man. That's the sweatiest defensive line that's out there, right? So, Sweaty Shorts, I like that. Also, you got Sweaty in your name too, my man. So, but yeah, Tavondre Sweat, low key. He's the other defensive tackle. For those that don't know, other defensive tackle out of Texas. The big man, 366, big body. But when you put on that tape, that big guy can dominate out there. So for sure. Let's see. Also, yeah, Jake saying that too. Like they all like Sweat, but let's see anything else that's out there. And yeah, I agree with Laz. Flus has wanted that 3-tech. Like, can you imagine being Flus where they're like sit down with polls and they're like, so what does your defense need? Well, number one, I need a 3 technique. Hey, don't worry. We'll get you Justin Jones. Like, no, I don't want Justin Jones. I want a 3-tech, right? And this has been eluding Flus for the past 3 seasons, or now going on to the 3rd season. So, I mean, we wanted Ogunjobi, but then Ogunjobi was banged up. But, I mean, luckily we did turn that down. Ogunjobi does not look like that same player, but this has been evading the Bears for all this time. So, let's see what ends up happening. But let's see. Also, where are you getting this money from? Oh, good question. This money is from Brad Spielberger. So, all these quotes from Brad Spielberger, and the reason why I like his numbers more than like a spot rack, I should have said this actually at the beginning. The reason why I like these numbers more than spot rack is spot rack more so uses their numbers as like, all right, this person is a quarterback that is 30 years old and has had this production. Typically they get X, while Brad Spielberger more so looks at the actual, what are they doing? Right? What is the context? Like with Connor Williams. Connor Williams, very, very good offensive lineman, but banged up, so he's probably going to get a smaller deal. So that's where I'm getting a lot of these numbers and items from. So we'll see. But man, this is fun. Over an hour. I know that a lot of you, I know the audio people, I know you guys love the hour-long shows. I've been seeing that out there. So also, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're watching, make sure to just hit that. But also, too, you can download the show everywhere that you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports everywhere on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Make sure to go out there and rate 5 stars. But tomorrow is free agency, and hopefully we can start to get some answers with what are the Bears going to be building with this team. Love you all. With that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.